Howdy. So, my plan is to document a new instrument that I've invented, I guess, and that I'm going to build. So, it's an electric, of course, you know. If anybody knows me, it's definitely something electric. Electric guitar-ish type thing. So, what ended up happening was, a couple weeks ago, I went with my family up to New Hampshire to camp. Went camping for a week. I'm not a big fan of camping. So anyway, one of the things that I wanted to do while we were up there is go to this vintage music store. It's like vintage fret shop or something. And they mostly have stringed instruments, but they have some other things. So I wanted to go there, and I like to just poke around and look at some stuff. And we've gone up to this area in New Hampshire once or twice a year, usually just for like a weekend or something. But once or twice a year over the last, I don't even know, 15 years, 18, something like that, a long time. So anyway, there's this vintage fret shop thing, and I have been in there in the past, and one year they had like an early 70s Strat for sale, really beat up, like super beat up, stuff replaced, not original, all kinds of things. But they have some interesting things, and what really catches my attention when I go there is they have a lot of like unusual instruments for me, New England, United States, suburban, guy in 2017. So they have lots of like world instruments, different things, harps and zithers and all kinds of things. One thing that I saw online that caught my eye was a tenor guitar. This was, I think from like, I think the 20s or something. So it was like almost 100-year-old instrument, an acoustic instrument. A tenor guitar is a 4-string guitar, tuned a little different, than a guitar, of course, and a little bit shorter. And the strings are, I believe on this one, all 4 are unwound strings. So it's sort of like a banjo-ish thing. And I guess the evolution of it was for people that played tenor banjo could then pick up a tenor guitar and get the tone of a guitar-ish type instrument without needing to relearn an instrument. So it was tuned like a tenor banjo and played very similarly to a tenor banjo, but of course, an acoustic guitar body and everything. So it had an acoustic guitar sound to it. So this one, it was interesting. The body was like a weird shape. It wasn't just a regular like dreadnought type acoustic guitar body. It was really interesting, and I was really interested in it. I did a little research and everything before we went, and when I went to go look at it, I really liked it. They were asking like $300, $290 or something, $295, something like that, and chunks of the binding had been replaced, and replaced rather poorly. They didn't match. The coloring of the binding didn't match on the body. Some binding on the neck was replaced that didn't match the color again. The biggest thing that sort of, ultimately helped me to decide not to buy it was the action was fairly high. And with, no way to easily tilt the neck like you can on a, bolt-on guitar. You can shim the neck a little bit, and no easy way to adjust the bridge height because the bridge saddle was already fairly low. So the action was somewhat high, and I was hoping to talk them down in price a bit because it would take some work, but it could be fixed. It's something that could be taken care of. A bit of work though. And I pointed it out, and the guy was not very receptive. He was very firm in the price. I said, well, the action's fairly high, and it doesn't play in tune after about the third or fourth or fifth fret. And he was like, what do you mean? No, it's fine. And I said, well, no, the action's too high, and that's causing it to have poor intonation. And he seemed to not understand what I was talking about. So I showed him, and I said, well, since the strings are so high, when you press down, that note is now sharp. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, I see. So I thought maybe, he'd wiggle on the price a bit, but he still was very firm in the price. So unfortunately, I, left without purchasing the instrument. But it got me thinking, and back at the cabin that we were staying at, because that's the only way that my wife could get me to go camping, if we had a cabin, with like a roof and doors and an actual bed and running water, things like that. So back at the cabin, I was thinking about it, and I started to kind of sketch out ideas, and I came up with an idea for an instrument that would have 4 pairs of strings. So 8 strings, 4 pairs of strings. And the more I thought about it, I was thinking, I could do the strings, instead of just making it like, say, a tenor guitar mixed with a 12-string guitar, then it would ultimately be like an octave mandolin or something like that. I was like, I want something that's really specific to electric, specific to the way that I play, the music that I like. So it's kind of like heavier and, thicker and fuller and things like that. So the octave strings were like, that's a little bright and jangly. So I started to think, I could do the 4 strings as unisons. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, okay, so the tuning, it's going to end up being tuned in fourths, like the first, or the bottom 4 strings on a guitar. Not the first 4, the bottom 4. So then what ends up happening, and I kind of like to do this, if I play like, say, a D chord on an out of tune guitar, sorry about that, if I play a D chord and then add the A on the low E string, so now I'm playing A, D, A, so I could make it a little worse, whatever. So I end up with A, D, A, then I can add a D on top, so I end up with, it's just a D5 chord, a power chord, but I have the A on the bottom, and that adds lower frequencies to the chord, so it still sounds like a D, but now it sounds like, sort of, it tricks, your brain into thinking it's a lower D than if I was just to play a standard D5 chord. So the lower sort of adds to that. So the more I thought about it, I was like, okay, I like that. I could make it lower by tuning that to a B instead of an E. So then it would be like a 7-string guitar with a low B. So B, E, A, D. And the more I thought about that, I was like, okay, I like that. Because then, if I'm playing, say, say the D that I just, was talking about. If I play the D on this instrument, that would be an A. So the 5th fret on a guitar, standard tuned, is an A. So I wouldn't have to sort of wrap my mind around too much. And that was, another thing I wanted to address. I don't want to like learn a whole new instrument. I could do that. It's not a huge deal. I play a few different instruments, but I would really rather prefer to apply everything I already know to this new instrument. and make it as simple as possible to be up and running. So that way, although it is a fourth off from standard tuning, the fifth fret in my brain I can still think of as an A. I'm just a string over in reality. If I was to play sort of an A on this instrument that I'm envisioning, that's really an E. But if I shift over a string like the D5 I was just explaining, that still gives me an A at the fifth fret. So doing it here, so this instrument that I'm envisioning would be open, open, second fret, second fret. That would still be an E, just with a B as the bottom. So it would be, I guess, an E5/B chord, but still an E5. So that was sort of my idea. And then the more I thought about it, and this went through like lots and lots of different tunings, lots and lots of different things, checking string tensions to find what gauges I should use, blah, 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 blah. So then I thought about it and I was like, okay, you know what? If I have unisons all across, the end result is this top D, B-E-A-D, is really fairly high. So rather than a unison, maybe I could have the D be an octave lower. And I was kind of thinking ukulele-ish, where on a ukulele's four strings, the sort of bottom string is actually a higher pitched than the next string. So it helps to give it that certain sound and everything. So I'm thinking two B's, two E's, two A's, unisons. Then the D being the next standard D, a fourth up from, the A D paired with a D an octave below that. So that way the lowest pitch is still going to be that lowest string. Okay, then B, C, D. So the D string an octave lower would be actually that pitch, the third fret on the lowest string of my imaginary instrument, if that makes sense. So what I'm hoping that will do is still give me that as being the lowest, this lowest string, thickest string, as being the lowest pitch, but will now help to clump frequencies together. So I'll have, the lowest B, then I'll have the A that would be the fifth fret on that string. Then I would have the D that would be the third fret on that string. So that's a lot of frequencies right close together, instead of spreading them out like on a standard guitar, where you could then get in one position like two in a third, two in a minor third, whatever you could actually reach with the size of your fingers and stuff. So rather than getting like 2 1/3 octaves, it would really clump it together to really like a little over an octave. So really kind of help to keep really close chord structures. So that's my plan, and I bought a whole lot of different parts and things to put this together. And the plan is to show everybody, the process of building this imaginary instrument. So of course the first step is, the idea. Thinking of a name, I was looking at like Latin names and different things, just to come up with something. I ended up with, I think my best idea is Donnerwehr, which is German. Thunder is Donner, because it's going to be a low, heavy kind of a sound, and Wehr is four in German. So Thunder 4, kind of, I like that idea. So I think that might end up being the name, but it still could be changed. Who knows? So let's start taking a look at it. Over the next few days, I'll document the whole thing, and there'll be plenty of videos for you guys to enjoy. Thanks for watching.